everyone, I'm Maddie, and since we're getting into the spooky season, I feel like one thing most people really like about Halloween is dressing up. So today I'm going to talk about my costumes on the Disney Cultural Exchange program.
Alright everyone, put on your opera glasses because it's time to present Maestro Mickey Mouse and the Philharmaddy Orchestra.
So before I actually get into ranking the costumes and talking about them, I just wanted to talk a little bit about costuming in general. So with Walt Disney World, you do not wear a uniform as a cast member, you wear a costume. Each different costume is specific to that location. Now, some costumes are used in multiple locations, but for the most part, you will get a unique costume for your location to tie in with the theming of the rest of the land. Now, when it comes to actually getting the costumes and trying them on and hiring them out, you do not have to pay for anything. Just making that clear straight away. They are provided to you. However, there'll be some elements like, I think usually obviously socks, hosiery, that kind of stuff. Obviously you'll have to provide your own unless there's a specific type of, say, I think some locations have like really high socks with like particular patterns on them, in which case they will provide it to you. Now, to actually get your costume, you're going to have to go to a costuming location. So these are massive warehouses. They have them either adjacent or within the sort of car services backstage area of the parks, Disney Springs, and then I think the resorts have like smaller like hub locations where you can get costumes for like 3 or 4 different resorts. Once you get there, it's pretty overwhelming. It's just this massive room filled with rows and rows of costumes. So the first challenge is finding your costume. Now, there are wonderful costuming cast members who are there to help, and they will be able to help you find your costume. And if you're ever in doubt as to what your costume entails, you can always check on the hub, and there will be details on there about exactly what things you need for your costume, because sometimes there are a lot of extra moving parts that you might not expect or remember, so yeah. Then, once you've found your particular clothing items, you'll see that there is a vast array of sizes available. Now, this is where it gets tricky because Disney sizings are weird. They are not like any other thing, and they sometimes, the sizings even within the same item. So for example, say working Frontierland, I was picking up a small or an extra small shirt, which is what I usually wore on my program, and I went to pick up a new one. It might be a completely different cut or a slightly different size to the one I already had. So if you do find one that fits really, really well, keep it, because you may never see it again if it goes in costuming. So if you want, you can go ahead and, when your costume is starting to get dirty, you can go ahead and return them to costuming and just grab out new ones. But I will say that for some items, I would recommend just keeping them on your person and just doing your laundry yourself, because then you know that you've always got your costume, as opposed to some random one that may not fit as well as that one special unique gem that just fit perfectly. But yeah, as I was saying, Disney costume sizes are weird. I range from everything from like a size 0 and 3 extra small to like a 16. It really depends on the costume, the type of system, because some clothes are unisex, some are not. It's just, sizings are weird. Once you've picked out your costume, you can then try them on. And this is where sizings come into play. Now, I would always just grab like a range of sizing, like 3 or 4 different sizes, just in the hope that one of them might fit. And if not, you go back, try again. And after that, you take them back out and they get scanned to your Blue ID. It's like almost like renting a library book or something. They've got little barcodes in them that get scanned as you walk through a scanner. And I think there's a limit of like 5 per costume piece that you can have. And that's costuming. Also, if you ever lose your name tag and have the rite of passage of needing to be Chris or Pat or Sam from Orlando, costuming's where you get a spare name tag from. So I did it once. I went through it. I was Chris from Orlando once, never again. So that's kind of the basics of just generally your costume. You go ahead, you go find where it is, you try on until you find one that fits, and then go rent it out and wear it to work. Personally, depending on if I was picking up a shift, I might do this, say, the day before or earlier in the day, just to make sure I left enough time, because sometimes I would go in and the first one I picked would fit. Other times, not so much. So one thing I'd recommend doing, especially if you're planning on trading shifts a lot, is to keep track of what sizes you're wearing. I had a little page of notes. I think unfortunately I got rid of it because otherwise I'd refer to it right now. So for example, in skirts, I'm between this size and this size. For pants and shorts, this is where I'm most likely to have my luck. And that helped make things a lot more efficient, especially because I was trading quite a lot of shifts. So with that, let's start talking about the actual costumes themselves. So throughout my program, I actually did a fair amount of shift trading. So how many costumes did I wear? A lot is the answer. 16 different costumes that I wore in my program. So we're gonna go from number 16 to number 1. So, last on my list, trendy. What is that costume? Like, the vest? This store is supposed to be about being on trend. This most certainly isn't. It just wasn't a particularly flattering costume. I wasn't a big fan of it, not particularly comfortable. I just, all throughout, I mean, I have enough trouble finding pants that fit the best at times because I've got weird proportions. I feel like almost everyone does, so everyone always complains about jeans shopping, but just finding pants that fit was a nightmare in my program. And you're gonna start seeing a trend here in the lower down lists as to which ones were not quite so enjoyable. So yeah, trendy, it was not awful, but just not flattering at all and confusing. I think that's what I call it, confusing. Next up, we have the rock and roller coaster one. Now, this photo is probably making it look a lot more flattering than it actually is because the vest literally just comes straight down. I was wearing a triple extra small and it was still almost sliding off my shoulders. It was massive. And again, pants. It just wasn't it was fine. It wasn't like uncomfortable to wear or anything. It's just not one of the better ones. Let's put it that way. Not the most inspired costume. Next up, we have the good old stock costume. This one, I mean, it's partially because I didn't mind stocking. I just wasn't a massive fan of it. But apart from that, finding shorts and pants that fit were a nightmare. The shorts were a lot easier than the pants, I will say. The shorts actually had decent sized pockets, the pants not so much. And the problem is that there are so many people who stock. It's hard to find, not only there's slightly less range in sizes because people are constantly taking them, but also just the quality of the shirts because you can tell they've been worn for a long time. So if you find a good stock shirt, keep it and hold on to it. Same with the pants. I didn't go ahead and return my pants to costuming to be washed. I just wouldn't do it because I knew that I would never find those ones again. Next up, we have World of Disney. I actually really like the shirt on this one, but company issued jeans. No. This one was just mainly so down low on my list because I didn't really find one that fit me properly because they were missing the one size in between the two that would have probably fit me because one was too small, one was too big, and they were missing the middle size. But yeah, I did one shift here. I actually really enjoyed the shift, just the costume isn't the best now that they have jeans. Okay, next up we're going to the classic strawberry outfit, and this may be an unpopular opinion. Sunset Boulevard and also Tower of Terror, they share the same costume. It's a tricky one because in theory it's supposed to look like a really cute kind of dress outfit, but just the way it fitted on me, the fact that I had to get quite a large shirt and then a really small skirt to actually fit around my waist, it just didn't, just the way it looked on me wasn't the most flattering. But it was still a great place to work and it looks amazing on some people, just not me. Next up, we have the Christmas shop. Now, this is actually a shift I didn't get to work. I had to call out one time because I was actually feeling rather sick, but I did try on the costume and I do have a photo of it, so I'm including it in this list. I'm sorry, Liberty Square bonnet baddies, but the bonnet ain't for me. It's just, no. But the worst thing actually was the dress itself. I was wearing a size 2, which was the smallest they had, and it was still like out here on me. It was ridiculous. So they need to sort out their sizings, and just the cut of that dress just did not work at all for me. But yeah, I don't know. Also the color scheme, just but it works on some people. Staying in Magic Kingdom, we are going to Big Top Souvenirs. Now, this costume I had a bit of a love-hate relationship with. I love the style of it. Like, I love the kind of circus atmosphere. It really got me into the mood. It was a lot of fun, running away to the circus, having a great time. But it was a very tight-fitting, quite thin material. And there were literally no, like, you had pockets, but if you put anything in them, they would show up in your silhouette straight away. So we couldn't really have anything in your pockets. But the most annoying thing was the collar, because it doesn't fold over quite all the way, and it just bugged me the entire time. But otherwise, I love the red pinstripes, and I had a lot of fun working here, and it was just a really cool vibe being in the circus tent and wearing the costume at the same time. Also, the pants, just in general, the pants are super comfy. They feel like pajamas, like they're just really comfy. They're just quite tight fitting. They're just quite clingy and not particularly thick material. Now, moving back to Hollywood Studios, Tatooine Traders. This was it was fine. I didn't have anything I disliked about it, apart from the fact that the material they used for the shirts was kind of weird, a bit scratchy, but other than that, it was a pretty cool costume. It's fine. Yeah, not much to say about it. Alright, mouse gear. Oh, I really like the mouse gear costume, actually. There's something about that shirt that was just really fun to wear. It was also easy to put on. Like, it's one of the simpler costumes. The pants I didn't actually have too much problem fitting, and the belt looks cool. It's just generally a kind of cute costume to wear. Yeah, and pretty comfy as well. The next one is probably the most basic of any of the costumes that I wore, because it's literally just a black shirt, black pants, and a belt. But there's one thing that makes it cool, and that's that Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. badge. Yeah, that's right. I'm talking about the superhero headquarters over in Disney Springs. I did a shift there, and be warned, when it comes to that S.H.I.E.L.D. badge, it is heavy. It's like a proper badge. But if you misplace it, and I say misplace it, you could be down about $50 out of your paycheck. So I'm guessing that's probably to dissuade less morally inclined people from selling it on eBay or taking it for part of the costume or something else. But yeah, it was cool. And one thing that I don't unfortunately have a photo of, which I can kind of say was part of my costume, because during the day we were basically always merchantaining, so we had a little shoulder grute, and it was like one of the little grutes with the magnet underneath that you put under your shirt, and it would just sit like just up there, and it was just a great time. Just Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. with a little grute on my shoulder. Yeah. Alright, next up we're going to something completely different, and for once this isn't merchandise. Rivers of Light, Asia. So this is actually also the costume, I think, for, I know it's Everest and maybe Cali River Rapids as well, I'm not sure, but generally it's the kind of Asia costume. And I really love this one. This was great fun to wear. The pants actually fit pretty well, the shorts even better. I love the little details they have on it, and this is where Animal Kingdom starts to shine a bit. Unfortunately, this is the only shift I did in Animal Kingdom, but with some of their newer costumes, for example, if we're looking at, say, Galaxy's Edge, for example, it's now becoming a trend with Disney costumes to be a bit more customizable in the way you wear them. So with this one, you had an option as to how you wore the collar in terms of if you had all the buttons done up or no. You could roll up the sleeves or not, you could tuck it in or have it loose, which hang down just a bit past your hips. And you had the option of a hat, no hat, and different kinds of pants and shorts as well. So it was just generally a really cool, versatile outfit that I really liked the styling of, and the pattern was cool. I kind of felt at home in Animal Kingdom with it, and also it's really comfortable to wear, which is good when you're essentially spending 3 hours just walking back and forth pushing strollers. Yeah. Now we're starting to get into the kind of higher end of my list where I just really love these costumes, and the first one we're going to talk about is the classic Emporium costume. I adored this costume. It was just a lot of fun to wear, getting to wear the Main Street tie, and the skirt was super cute. I just really liked wearing it. It was quite a heavy skirt though, so thankfully I was indoors the entire time because I don't think I'd want to be wearing this at an outdoor cart or something, but it was just really cute to wear and a lot of fun. I don't know what exactly it was about this one, but I just really loved the Hollywood Studios hub cut costume, what some people refer to as the blueberry costume, at least in merchandise, although not to be confused with the blueberries, which is also the nickname for the character attendant costume. It was just a really cute costume. I love the little necktie. I loved the hat. The hat was my favorite part of this costume, and the shorts were pretty comfy. It was just a fun one to wear, and I had a good day wearing it. So, good times. Good times. Now we get to the costume that I wore the most on my program, and that is the Frontierland merchandise costume. I feel so lucky to have had this as my home location for so many different reasons, but the costume is definitely one of them. It was one of the easiest costumes because, first of all, it's an elastic waist skirt. The pockets go all the way down to your thighs. They were like Mary Poppins pockets. Like, you could hide so many stickers in there. You could put your phone in there, snacks, almost anything. You could just put a lot of stuff in those pockets. It was great. And the button-up shirt was super easy, and there were usually a fair variation of sizes. So I would often be just switching out my shirt with no problem. The only thing is my skirt, I did have some problems sometimes getting the correct size, just because having a small or an extra small in long was a bit hard to get hold of, but we got through it. It was just really comfy. The only thing is that you do have to wear stockings. Thankfully, this particular skirt is pretty lightweight, and because of how long it is, you only really had to wear knee highs, but when it was getting into the summer, I definitely started to get like a t-shirt tan and like along the collar line and everything, because it can get pretty warm out there at times in that costume. Okay, I had a really hard time choosing between these last two as to what would be my number 2 and my number 1 favorite costumes, because they're both my favorites for different reasons. But if I had to rank them, Memento Mori is coming second. This costume, it just puts you straight into that theming of being in Madame Leota's old house. Because that is actually the lore behind Memento Mori, is that it actually used to be owned by Madame Leota, and the villagers are kind of keeping it maintained and using it as a storefront. And just having that Madame Leota brooch and the sort of batwing edges to the apron, it was just a great time. However, getting the costume on in the first place was a bit of a challenge, which is why I am putting it below my number 1. So for those of you who have ever done Halloween treat shifts, you may recognize that apron style, because it is confusing, and I needed to get help when I first initially tried to put it on, because the way it works is that it straps over your back in a crisscross, which you then have to button to 2 separate bits, like down by your waist, and then tie around your back. And to get the right lengths on everything takes a bit of trial and error, and it's pretty time consuming at first, but just the theming of the costume just puts you straight into that environment, and it's why it is my number 2 on my list. And now we get to number 1. So if you've been keeping track, and you know, and if you have an idea of where I've worked, Bonjour Gifts. This dress, the forest dress, I loved wearing it. And one of the reasons why it comes above Memento Mori is that it was so easy, because it's literally just 2 pieces. You've got the kind of corset and sort of top part which zips up, and then you've got the skirt underneath, and that's it. It's a 2-piece costume as opposed to the ridiculous number that is Memento Mori's. And working in Bonjour Gifts in that costume, you feel like a princess. You've got this amazing skirt which just twirls so beautifully. And also just generally, there's another reason why I absolutely loved wearing skirts is because then when you see little princesses coming along, you can so easily just take out your skirt and give a little curtsy and say, depending on the location, in this case for Bonjour Gifts it was Bonjour Princess, and their faces would just light up and it was the best. And it's a lot easier to do in a skirt than it is in pants. I just really love this costume, just the detail on it is gorgeous. It just fits into New Fantasyland so perfectly. There were a couple of times when I had little kids asking if I was a princess and that made my day. But of course I said no, Belle is that way. But it was flattering and it was just magical getting to wear essentially what was almost a princess dress, and the closest that I came on my program to wearing a princess dress. And with that, that concludes my list for today. If you have been a cast member, if you are a cast member, or if you're just a guest roaming the parks, what is your favourite Disney cast member costume? Because there are a lot of them out there. Personally, I think outside of merchandise and the ones that I wore, I think it has to go to the classic bellhop and maids of the Tower of Terror and Haunted Mansion respectively, just because of the amount of theming, and it just adds so much to the character and the atmosphere and the immersion of those particular attractions. So definitely stay tuned for next week because we have an episode that you'll be dying to see. Until next week, TTFN!